Okay, so I'm joined today by our local MP, Terry Beech. Terry, it's great to have you here today, representing the government, and interesting and unprecedented times.
Yeah, well, it's nice to have you here as well. I should shut that off. There's my phone already. It's great to have you here, even if it is virtual. Since Parliament let out, I've been in the office every day, but my staff are working from home. So it's nice to have somebody else in the office.
Well, yeah, it's I think actually, interesting enough, and we touched on it a little bit earlier, having the opportunity to connect nowadays is perhaps more meaningful than ever. So we're very glad to be able to do that and to chat with you today. Obviously, there's been a lot of announcements lately, and it's remarkable the speed with which things have changed, the speed with which your government has had to react and adapt to what's going on. Obviously, we've been hearing a lot from our businesses about what they would like, what they see that's been coming through, and perhaps what they'd like a bit more information or clarity on. So if you don't mind, I'd like to start on something which started off a week or so ago as a 10% wage subsidy with some fairly clear guidelines as to how businesses might qualify for that subsidy, and also reasonable clarity over how you would process it and receive the subsidy. And then, of course, we had the dramatic and very welcome increase to 75%, and the information on Monday about how businesses might qualify for that. So the 75%, I think, is a tremendous move forward. We were pushing for that and advocating for that, and you and I spoke about it last week. So we're very pleased to see that has happened. Perhaps you could share with us a little bit about the thinking behind getting to that particular number, and also perhaps a bit of clarity, because we're still waiting for some word on how you show what 30% reduction in revenue is and other qualifying mechanisms.
Yes. So I guess I'd start by saying this is the most entrepreneurial that I've ever seen the Canadian federal government. And as somebody who was an entrepreneur before he was an MP, it's an interesting time to be a member of Parliament. There are literally times now where we are discussing something one day, and then we're seeing the Prime Minister talk about it in his briefing the next day. So things are moving incredibly fast. And that is good news, because I think our government needs to be agile and needs to be innovative, because these are unprecedented times. There's no real rule book for a pandemic and modern economic context. In terms of the 75% wage subsidy, yes, we talked about it, as I did with many business owners. I was happy to also see that it's also going to apply to nonprofits who are also struggling currently. I know that there have been questions around the specific kind of the fine print details. That was supposed to be released today. I've been updated as of this morning that Minister Murnau and Minister Ng will be updating some of the finer details tomorrow morning. So that'll be coming out. I know that there are questions around the 30%. I, as a previous business owner, thought that would be kind of a year-over-year thing, but I don't want to presume what the ministers are going to say tomorrow morning. So for everybody who's watching this immediately, you should have the answers to that question within the next 12 hours.
That'd be great. We're looking forward to hearing that and sharing that with our members. You know, people, I guess, are currently guessing what might happen, and is it going to be based on what I did in terms of cash receipts this time last year, or is it based on what I've budgeted for this month? Is it based on what I report for this month? So there's many different ways, I guess, that it could be coming down.
Yeah, the one thing that we know for certain is the amount, right? So there is a cap. It's not an unlimited 75% subsidy. Yeah. It's a maximum of $847 a week. And so if you cycle that up to the full 100% of payroll, you're looking at an equivalent salary of about $59,000. Yeah, maximum.
Yeah, and certainly a very welcome step in the right direction. And we'll be sure to share that information with our members as soon as we have it. Another announcement that came out, obviously at a similar time, was the Canada emergency business account, right, where there was a loan, an interest-free loan. We had some questions around that. It's certainly, again, a welcome announcement. One of the questions that we had from some of our members is I believe one of the qualifying criteria is that you needed to have had a minimum of 50,000 in payroll in the previous year. we've had some calls from people saying, well, I only started my business halfway through the year or in the latter part of the year. Does that mean that I completely miss out on this?
Well, that's a good question. So I'll tell you what I know about the emergency business account. And I'll tell you about the programs I know about that might help an individual in that specific situation. So the emergency business account, I think we budgeted for up to $25 billion in loans. On an individual business basis, the maximum is $40,000. And as you said, in order to qualify, you need payroll in the previous year of between $50,000 to $1 million. Just for context of scope, I mean, to hit $50,000 of payroll, I mean, you basically, if you have 2 full-time minimum wage earners on payroll, you're going to qualify for this particular program. That doesn't necessarily meet the needs of an individual business that would have started in the last 6 months. Some things that people should know about this program is that while it is an interest-free loan for up to 2 years, you have the option to extend it for an additional 3, but with interest. But the other thing that I don't think a lot of people know about is that if you pay back the loan before the end of 2022, 25% of it is forgivable. So if you borrowed $40,000, you would only have to pay back $30,000 as long as you were able to make that payment before the end of 2022. So if you're somebody who has, say, a $5,000 lease, that potentially could cover up to 8 months worth of lease payments, but you'd only have to pay back 6, which is helpful. That might not help somebody who doesn't have the $50,000 in payroll, but there are other measures that certainly would help. It would be worth examining if they have the equivalent of $50,000 worth of payroll today. If you put it out over a year, whether that would qualify. I don't have an answer to that, whether that does or not, but that would be an interesting question to ask, I think. But in addition, they certainly would benefit from the income tax deferral that is in place from, I think, March 18th to September 2020. That's an equivalent of an interest-free loan. That's cash, you know, we know that cash is king at this time, so that's keeping more cash in their accounts. There was also, in terms of liquidity, a $10 billion program set up between Export Development Canada and the Business Development Bank. And those would provide loans up to a maximum, I think, of over $6 million. So if you have a new business that is already proven to be viable, there are other mechanisms in order to get financing if you are facing, a cash crunch because of COVID. The other deferral mechanism that's in place right now is deferral of GST, HST, and duty payments. If you zoom out and kind of look at the entire package, I think right now we're looking at about $200 billion. I mean, it's really an unprecedented package. $52 billion of that is direct spending. $85 billion is tax deferral, another $65 billion in loans. That's not going to fit everyone. There will be companies that that will slip through the cracks, and certainly every business is in tough times right now. But our goal as a federal government is, first of all, to protect health of Canadians, but to ensure that as we work through this, that the Canadian economy is maintaining and is ready to ramp back up when we get back to a steady state.
Yeah. Thanks for the clarification there, Terry. And as you say, and it's worth mentioning as well, you know, we obviously are a business group, and we're very, very focused on the supports for business. But as you rightly say, the health of Canadians is first and foremost. And I think the messages coming out from the government have been very reassuring in terms of the commitment to social distancing and other measures to protect the health of citizens in the country. So,
it's one thing to say that, health is first and business is second, but business is also helping with health. So we should acknowledge all those companies that have upended their traditional business models to answer the call of Canada. There's no doubt that any sort of support programs that we build have to be built on maintaining health and making sure frontline health workers are able to stay healthy and have the equipment that they need. And I was given an update this morning Canadian businesses, we're looking at supplying 1,500 new ventilators within weeks. There's an open source design that's coming out for ventilators, over 157 million surgical masks, millions of testing kits. There's $300 million being pumped into COVID research and companies that are coming at it to do that. So I certainly would want to say that, you know, for everybody who's a business owner in Canada right now, I understand how tough it is. I mean, I was an entrepreneur before I was a member of Parliament. But also just want to say thank you to those businesses that are not just sheltering in place, but are, you know, stepping up and looking for ways to kind of help Canadians through this process, because business is helping the government and helping Canadians get through this. And I think that's a message that we need to make sure that people hear about.
Exactly. At some point when we get through this, we need a healthy business community as well. And it's great to see some of the steps that are coming through on that. And we've heard from some of our members who, exactly to your point, Terry, are looking to see what they can do by repurposing their own businesses to help provide goods and services and support for people as we move forward.
Yeah, we had a, I'm sorry, I didn't want to stop you from asking. I was just going to say, like, just as an example, we had Deep Cove Kayaks I was talking to about the 75%, and there was concern about whether or not they'd be able to qualify because they're a tourism business. And of course, you know, there are not too many people renting kayaks these days. But they came up with a great idea, which was they wanted to provide a benefit to frontline health workers that when this was all over, that they would, you know, be able to come in and have a kayak as kind of a, you know, just for them to show that, you know, how much they appreciate the work that our health workers have been doing. And I thought, well, why don't we pitch that to the broader business community and to the Minister of Tourism? Because I'm sure there's a lot of tourism businesses that are out there that would love to have a nurse or a frontline doctor come and visit their operations after this is all over. So I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities to really think about how we can kind of come out of this in interesting ways. And the business community is going to be part of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Terry, let me ask you about something which is we're obviously working very much with the provincial government to look at what can happen with lease payments, property tax is one thing that we're looking at. What do you think the federal government can do to help out businesses that are currently looking at some of these payments you know, in the very near future and are struggling to work out what they're going to do?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of businesses that are directly impacted by the federal government, we saw just within the last 24 hours waiving of rents at the airports. And I think, I'm not sure about the ports, but I imagine that's being considered as well. In terms of individual lease payments, we've been focused on liquidity, making sure that individual business owners have the money that they need to make their rent payments and their lease payments. A lot of that comes under the programs that we already discussed, whether it be the Business Development Bank and EDC loans or the Emergency Loan Fund. But we're also making sure that individuals, customers of businesses, are going to be able to continue to meet their needs. So, you know, I think we've seen a lot of flexibility when it comes to EI. So some businesses, for example, are having to lay people off in order to make ends meet. We want to make sure that those individuals are going to be taken care of. We have the CERB, the Canadian Emergency Response benefit. That's starting up shortly. I think the applications start on April 6th. That's $500 a week, $2,000 a month for up to 14 weeks. And I think the people that apply and receive that, and there will be a lot of self-employed individuals and entrepreneurs and part-time or gig workers that will be qualified for that wouldn't traditionally qualify for EI, will automatically, I believe, qualify for the $1,000 benefit in addition from the provincial government. So that's $9,000 over the next 14 weeks. And of course, that's on top of the increase in the Canada Child Benefit, the increase in the GST credit. So a lot of protecting small business is making sure that their customers are still able to meet their needs. And so if you look at the majority of the, let's call it the federal package thus far, a big chunk of that has gone directly to business, but a big chunk of that has also gone directly to Canadians. And that is going to help small business at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. Let me ask you about essential businesses or businesses that might be deemed essential or otherwise. Obviously, some provinces have come out and have made their own statements about what currently or potentially will be deemed essential services. From the federal government's point of view, is this something that's being contemplated to maybe be over and above the provincial declarations, or are you leaving it just to the provinces?
I'm not quite sure. I mean, thus far, it has been the provinces. I mean, here in British Columbia, the province put out a pretty extensive list of what was considered essential, and have, of course, reserved the right to change what is essential as we get into the weeds more and more on how this COVID situation is affecting businesses and individuals, and what effects the current measures are having on our ability to flatten the curve, which, of course, is the overall goal to maintain our health system. So I would imagine that there probably are discussions around ensuring, especially transportation networks. I'm kind of relying on my old role as Parliamentary Secretary of Transport when I think about the trade corridors and, making sure that the planes, trains, automobiles that get our goods to market can continue to service, because, if you follow any supply chain from raw material to finished good, more and more that's dependent on a global supply chain. You'd be amazed at what products are in your house and where they come and how they get assembled and how many countries and how many different companies are usually involved in that. Certainly there's been discussion around ensuring that the government has the liquidity so that if there was any sort of private infrastructure or infrastructure that our business ecosystems are dependent on when it comes to those supply chains, that they're not going to be disrupted. But in terms of actually calling out individual essential businesses, thus far that's been a provincial jurisdiction, and I haven't seen the federal government weigh in on that to date. Okay.
Well, Terry, it's been great chatting to you, and I'll let you get on with what must be yet another busy day, I'd imagine, on your front. But before I let you go, anything you'd like to say to the business community here in Burnaby, and how they can perhaps still interact with you during this time, and what message of support you can give them?
Sure. Well, first of all, to everybody in the business community, thank you for really stepping up. It's not easy to shut your doors for public health purposes, and I've talked to a lot of entrepreneurs, everything from somebody that started up a business within the last couple of months to companies that have been going on for decades at every size, and the pain is being felt right across the business ecosystem. So thank you to the business community for stepping up. Thank you for your patience, but thank you also for your feedback. There is a reason why we've announced one program and then adjusted it and relaunched it as another program within days in some cases. It's because people have pointed out ways that we can make our programs better. And, I'm really excited that our government is being agile in that way. In terms of my office, our physical office is closed. So I'm here in my office by myself. I've been here every day since Parliament was down, but my entire team is also operating from home. So if there's some way that we can help, you can call my office. Our number is 604-718-8870. You can email me, terry.beech@parl.gc.ca, and that's beech like the tree, not beach like the sand. That's BEECH. In terms of getting updates on everything from travel to health to new business programs, canada.ca/COVID-19 is being updated daily. So that's a very good resource. And of course, I have my website, terrybeechmp.ca, and we have a really good YouTube channel that we're trying to keep updated, and a really good Facebook page that we try to keep updated. So I'm not hard to find if somebody wants to get a hold of me. And my message to the entire business community, especially as an entrepreneur, is I'm here to help. So don't hesitate to get a hold of me.
Thanks very much, Terry. We appreciate it very much, and we appreciate a lot of what we're hearing coming out of your government to help business. We understand that your government realises the importance of the economy surviving this, and not just surviving it, but coming out even stronger at the end. And we look forward to continue working with you and your colleagues to ensure that happens. So thanks again, and look forward to speaking to you again soon.
Thank you, Paul. Well, have a great day.
Thanks, Terry.